My name is Will Brown, and this video is a demonstration of my workflow between Poser and the drawing board. I'm going to be creating a pinup of Vampy, and it will be available on sale at auction in my eBay store at Will Brown Media. Visit me at willbrownmedia.com. Enjoy
Looking
and
at
thanks.
Poser and its interface. The figure that you see in the window is a DAZ 3D model that has been posed and morphed to approximately Vampy's proportions. And I'm setting up the lights prior to doing a render. I'll use that render for my pencil sketch. I use Poser because it's a quick and easy way to get accurate anatomy. Poser's figures are not perfect, but they're good enough if you know enough about anatomy to do convincing illustrations and cartoons. And that's what I use it for. Any aspiring artist should study anatomy. This includes life study, guided study by teachers, and using your friends and also yourself as a source of reference when necessary to produce any kind of image. The idea behind this study is to produce informed and convincing images that people will find believable. There are some artists, like Frank Frazetta, who have taken their study of anatomy to a place where they have created their own cartoon version of anatomy. Frank studied anatomy and then created his own design for the human being, and it's a totally acceptable way of doing it. You can see it in Simon Bisley's work. You can see it in a lot of artists' work. It's very clear that they know anatomy and they've decided to change it for dramatic purposes. Frank's work is a great example of this, and there are literally hundreds of fantasy artists that follow him in this regard. As you can see, I've generated a render of my Vampirella, and the hairstyle isn't perfect, but you can see that it produces a very nice lighting situation, and I've got a nice dramatic setup here. Both Poser and DAZ 3D Studio can produce renders of this sort. DAZ 3D Studio is a free application that's available from DAZ 3D. Just Google it, and DAZ has a tremendous offering of 3D objects, models, architecture, etc., as well as some really good applications like Carrara and DAZ 3D Studio. I'm partial to Poser also because I've been using it for a long time, but DAZ 3D Studio is becoming a very good animation and render package.
Here's the printout of the Poser render and the sketch drawn on a light box. It's fairly comprehensive, and now I'm ready to start painting.
Okay, now I've generated my sketch from Poser and I'm starting to lay in the paint. Now what I'm doing is putting a very thin, very light color that's, say, like a mid-tone value that that's essentially a tint of the basic flesh tone. And I do this to cover all the paper that the image is going to show on. I don't generate any light from the paper. I deliberately deaden the whites so that I can use the acrylic white to create my highlights. Now, I work full range now. I used to start light to dark. I advocate that, or dark to light. That's another approach. Beginners usually do one way or the other. I work full range. And as you can see, I'm sort of like in the middle, starting in the middle and then going to the outer reaches. Now, I'm not going to get to the complete painting on this because the tape ran out, so you'll just see some of how I do this. Right now, I'm just basically blocking it out and establishing the values and getting some idea how I'm going to get this lighting to work. Now here I've started to lay in a very, very preliminary amount of light. It's just to cover up pencil sketch and also to establish the lighter areas with a pure opaque over the paper. Now I'll rework that once I start getting into the closing up on the piece, but right now what I'm going to do is now start adding some of the color and doing some mixing. One of the great things about acrylic is that it allows you to work wet and wet in a mix, or you can also glaze, and as long as the paint is wet, you're able to really kind of scumble. I use a blend of both techniques. Sometimes I'm using glazes, sometimes I'm using wet and wet techniques. It's just what the situation requires. It's kind of like obvious, right, in the situation when the pigment's on the paper. Say, oh my gosh, well, yeah, I could do that with glaze. Boop, and you throw glaze down. Oh, that needs a little scumble, and you scumble, you know. And the thing is, acrylic at this size is kind of like working in oil, because it does have a long enough drying time to allow you to do a lot of the nicer scumbles at this size. Much bigger than this, you might need to put a retarder in if you really wanted to get oil-like features. And a lot of people don't even bother because I think glazing affords a much quicker result without having to deal with the time constraints of dealing with a retardant that allows you to slow the drying process. Oil is a great media to work in, but acrylic, once you get the hang of it, is so much faster and so much actually easier to get to completion. And the finish can look, with some of the finished materials, can look equally as good as anything done in oil. So that's one of my reasons for using it.
And now you can see the finished painting, which is available on eBay. And this completes the tutorial from poser to pinup. And visit me at my website at willbrownmedia.com or my eBay store, Will Brown Media. Have fun.